Aloha and welcome to Native Diaspora. I'm your host, Belinda, also known as Kalani. This is a space to share the voices of marginalized communities. Hello. Okay, so I wanted to give a little backstory of my name, Native Diaspora, since it has changed. If you're not interested, go ahead and just fast forward it until you no longer see the hat. By the way, this hat, I just want to shout out, it says making mo'olalos, which I'm just like, I love this hat. It's by Hulale Designs. She also does the Eat More Veg Aina. Very creative stuff. And I just had to wear this because I am making mo'olalos. I'm making stories, storytelling, and that's what it's all about. So anyways, Native Diaspora. So I changed the name from Native Eyes Mana'o to Native Diaspora. Why? Okay, so I was having a conversation with my kumu, and she had told me Native Eyes Mana'o doesn't make sense. And I was like, why? But I was coming from a Western perspective. So the words mana'o should be in front of Native eyes. So we started talking story, and I was seeing things from a Western perspective as someone who is not a native speaker, Olala Hawaii speaker, which honestly keeps coming up. And I really need to do my due diligence because I cannot see the world in the way my kupuna see the world if I'm still speaking the colonizer's language, right? So I need to learn the language because it is so important. And yes, I know bits and pieces and words, but I need to speak it fluently. So that's definitely a goal. And that's something that has continued to come up for me. And it's something that I really need to just do. Same thing for you guys. Learn the language. It is so important. And I'm preaching it as someone who does not speak it fluently, but we cannot undo this Western perspective if we don't do our due diligence to learn the language. It is a part of breaking those Western barriers. But anyways, Native Diaspora is the new name, and she helped me choose this name because I am of the diaspora community as someone who is Kanaka Maoli. My grandmother and my mom left. And my mom was born on Oahu, but she left when she was little. She was bebes. I think so many of us are within the diaspora community. So many of us have been displaced. And so I just felt that the name was really fitting. A lot of us have been so displaced, especially in that demographic of the US in general. And even with Hawaii, we're illegally occupied. A lot of us have been displaced. And I felt that a lot of people would be able to relate to this name. It's a really hot topic right now. I feel like a lot of people are talking and bringing awareness to the word diaspora. And for those that don't know, the word diaspora, it's a community of people who have been displaced from their culture and of their original homeland, growing up outside of that place. So if you're still here listening to this little segment, drop it in the comments, put 333. I'm trying to start something. Oh, and I literally just saw 333. And when I was having this thought, I was driving and the car behind me said 333. I looked up in my mirror and I saw on the license plate 333. 333. So 333 is my number. So if you have watched this little segment, put it in the comments. That's all. Go ahead and continue with the episode. Thank you. In today's episode, we're going to go a little bit down the rabbit hole. Our last episode, I had the opportunity to work with Ta'i Miroa, and she was amazing and gave a lot of insight about her own personal experience and the issues within the system. In today's topic, I want to speak a little bit about the DOE, since there's a lot of things that are happening right now collectively within the United States. Also get into the history of our career. These things can jeopardize us as teachers, as educators, and especially our students. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay. So first, I really want to dive into what the fuck is happening in the US right now. So for those that don't know, Trump recently signed an executive order on March 20th. What does that mean? For those that don't know, we receive funding through education in 3 different tiers, 3 different levels. We receive funding through education federally, through state and through local. And when he had announced this, that he was going to give it to the states and the local government, a lot of people were like, yeah, yay. We actually already receive funding from state and local agencies. The schools that need it most receive funding federally. This especially helps our marginalized communities. They help Title I schooling. So if we remove federal funding, that's going to displace a lot of our resources. A lot of our resources go towards tier 1 school systems. For instance, especially here in Hawaii, olalo Hawaii in the school system and other cultural relevant things, cultural practices and cultural field trips. These things are funded federally. As a SPED teacher, we receive certain resources for our students with disabilities, speech services, mental health services. And then if you really want to go deeper, who are the students that need it? It's usually marginalized students, marginalized communities, because of all of the things and layers that has happened throughout history. It affects those students the most. If you take away this funding, that's really going to limit the resources for them. Another issue is financial aid. So let's say we have a Native Hawaiian student and they have great grades and their family can't afford to put them in school. So federal funding will fund financial aid for them to get an opportunity to get a scholarship. If we take that away, it's like a catalyst effect. It's going to affect so many students and so many communities on a deeper level, especially marginalized communities. So if we remove the federal funding, that's really what it's going to do. We already receive funding from our state and local, but the federal funding does help with resources, and it also helps keep certain things in place, especially for our Indigenous marginalized, say, Native children, whether that's cultural clubs or language classes or hula, especially these schools that are already poor and who can't get that much funding through their state and local taxes because it's a poorer demographic area. They rely heavily on federal funding. We have students who really need certain services. They may have an IEP and they need these additional services and resources like speech and physical therapy, mental health, counseling, all of that pays contributions to those things. So if you remove this funding, it's really going to jeopardize our students and jeopardize the resources that we use also to teach. It's a really scary time right now for educators. It's also a really scary time for our students. I want to bring awareness to a teacher in Idaho who was told to remove her sign. For those that don't know, she had a sign or a poster in her classroom and it said, "Everyone is welcome here." In the picture, there was students of various colors holding hands. She was told to remove this poster because it had conflicting views that everyone may not agree with. I have a teacher friend. I'm not going to say her name just to protect her and her identity, but she has shared with me certain things that are happening within her within her school, and she works at a public school. That's a topic that I really want to get into because this friend, this teacher has an amazing classroom, a political classroom, and it's rooted in historical truth. This is what classrooms should look like. She is being told that she may need to remove some of these pieces that is teaching the narrative of historical truth. And that's part of becoming a social studies teacher. People who join the field for the right reasons, it's because they want to teach historical truth. That's really what it should be about. And she is passionate in that. And I love to see her dedication to that in those teachings and to teach her students the historical truth. And now she is being told that she may need to remove some of these pieces because they are political pieces. And we've seen over time within the education system that we continue to tell, whose truth are we telling? We continue to tell a white narrative, and we diminish indigenous cultures. We diminish these marginalized communities, indigenous, native, black, brown cultures. And instead we give this white narrative and we whitewash history. And we've seen it over time around the world. And here we have a teacher that is being told that she may need to remove these things because they don't align with this white narrative. So it's a really scary time. I think it's the best time for me to leave this field, and I've been on the fence of wanting to leave the field or wanting to stay in the field. And I don't really want to give too much background in this episode, but I have decided through my own personal experiences of what I've undergone as an educator, as a teacher, that this is not the right field for me. And I've seen too much, I've experienced too much to want to continue in this field. And for anyone else who's in this field, like, more power to you. I just know that this isn't my path and this isn't my journey. But just like my friend, I praise and I love to see what she's doing, because we do need teachers like this, and we do need teachers out there who can do this and who continue to fight and continue to teach the truth and continue to educate our students in a way that they need to be educated. There's so many things that are happening in the education system. Another one is ICE going into schools. I was seeing ICE going into the different schools. I was like, that's not going to happen here in Hawaii. Like, no way. And then I saw it happening on Oahu, and I was like, okay, well, I don't think it'll happen on this island, on Hawaii Island. I didn't think it was going to happen here. You would think it would maybe happen somewhere like Oahu because it's more industrialized, it's more city-like, it's busier, it's more heavily populated, but it's happening here too. And it happened in this district that this teacher works at. It happened at one of the elementary schools over there. And it's a really scary time to see them go into the education systems, into public school settings, and remove children. Schools are supposed to be safe places. It's supposed to be a safe haven for children. And right now, more than ever, we're really questioning what is safe, what is not safe. I mean, just imagine if these kids didn't go to school that day. When you bring your kid to school, you shouldn't be thinking like this. You shouldn't have these thoughts. Is my child, are they going to be safe today? Or do I need to worry about this? And so this adds a whole other level of fear, and a fear instilled in the children, a fear instilled in the parents. I feel like we really need to bring awareness and talk about these issues because, like, it's because we need to bring awareness to these things. Another thing that I wanted to bring awareness to was back to the whole whitewashing narrative and whitewashing history. In November 2024, it was passed that Bibles were going to be put in public schools. There was a group called Liberty Council, and they had filed a lawsuit against the state of Hawaii because the state of Hawaii was like, no, you're not bringing religion into the education systems. That goes against the Constitution. They fought it, and they said that according to the First Amendment and the 14th Amendment, it discriminated against them. And there's different groups and after school programs that they should also be allowed to have these after school religious programs and have the Bibles implemented inside the school systems. So they won, which felt like a huge win on their part. And now Bibles are being dispersed into the public education system. I could just go down like a rant of why that's not okay, and how we've continued to see how religion plays a huge aspect, especially Christianity, in our school system, from doing the Pledge of Allegiance and honoring God, one nation under God. And we've seen how we've assimilated and indoctrinated our students into believing this view and mindset and implementing it in the school. I don't think that's okay. They're saying now that it would only be after school and it wouldn't be used throughout the school day. But after speaking to some teachers, they said that it would actually be displaced in their classroom for like like a bookshelf for the students to have access to it at any time. And I might get some controversy on this. As someone who's not religious, I am religious. I just don't conform to Western religion. I have my own personal relationship with God and all the different Na'akua, all the different deities. I just don't put a label or name to it because my relationship is a personal relationship. And I don't believe in pushing religion on kids, on students. And so it's scary to see because it's like, how far will this go? At first, it was supposed to just be that Bibles were accessible towards the end of the day. Now they're being pushed into the classrooms. Who knows if their teachers are going to be pushed into having to teach within the Bible? I really don't know how far it will go, but I believe that if we're going to have that resource, then we need to have other books as well. So we should have books of the Quran. We should have the Kumulipo, which is our creation story. We should have creation stories from around the world, other cosmogonies, other cosmologies, if we're going to have the Bible. That's my belief and my view, because I'm just seeing us assimilate and indoctrinate our students more and more and more. At what point are they going to be able to think for themselves instead of adopting to what we are shoving down their throat or what we are teaching them or what we need to teach them? There's a fine line of pushing our beliefs on them and then teaching things that are relevant to them. But that's as deep as I'm going to go with those topics. I really want to get into the histories of career and the origins of that. So before I even go down this rabbit hole, I had watched this movie. I've already had these mindsets and the way I think. I watched it right before going into 2025. So for me, it really like built this picture of so many synchronicities in terms of how I see the world. And I was able to watch it through a movie. The way they did this movie, it was just extremely creative. I just want to I want to vouch for this movie on all levels. The movie is called They Clone Tyrone. For those who haven't watched that movie, you need to watch that movie. That movie is everything. It's so good. It won so many awards. It was very well done. It might be triggering to some. It does have some graphic things, but it addresses some really deep conversations that need to be fucking had. So let's talk about it. It was so good. So I watched it a second time. There were other things like little subliminal messages that I had seen or noticed upon watching it the second time. So this movie, without giving like too much away, because I want you to watch it, but without giving too much context away, this movie really addresses colonialism. It addresses the effects on marginalized communities within the food industry, the brainwashing of our music. It also gets deep into history and showcases the experimenting that was done on Black people, like the syphilis experiment, where Black people were used to run experiments on. They were used like test subjects, and so this movie kind of addresses all of these different things and ways that we are controlled and manipulated and separated by the government, and how all of these things play a role, and each little piece all connects. It really has you questioning everything to like what's in our food, what's in our music. Redlining is another thing. Marginalized communities that are gentrified. It addressed everything on a whole in this very creative way. It paints a picture in a way that I feel like other people would be able to relate. And so this really got me digging deeper into just understanding how our system works and how things works, which had me dig deeper into certain career origins and how many of us actually know the origins of our career. Because I will tell you, I recently just learned the dark history of schooling. It is based on the Prussia education system. For those that don't know, Prussia was pre-Germany. After they had lost the war to Napoleon, they said they lost the war because soldiers had a mind of their own and that they weren't listening and they weren't conforming. And this was like in the time of the Industrial Revolution, that they wanted to build people to become soldiers to be able to fight the war. So they started with the kids. They wanted to create these kids for them not to question authority, for them to listen. So they would not be thinkers and they would just obey and listen and ideally like win and fight the war. There was a Prussian philosopher, Johann Fitch. He influenced the creation of this system. He's known as the father of neo-Nazism. Let me just read to you what he said. Education should aim at destroying free will so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. With this technique, when this technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need for armies and policemen. He argued that education should serve the nation, preparing children to be loyal, disciplined, and morally responsible citizens. Some say this is how Hitler was able to come to power because they were breeding a set of children under this philosophy that you don't question authority, you just abide, you listen, and you do. And so some say that's how Hitler was able to come into power, because all of these babies were born into this system of thinking. Therefore, when Hitler came to power, they didn't disobey, they were obedient. And so you kind of see how it goes hand in hand. And so they brought it back in the US, and that's how our education system was founded. And so there's also a lot of dark history within the education system of indoctrinating and stripping indigenous and native culture, stripping identity, stripping language, all of these things, and assimilating. And so it really had me questioning, because there were certain things that I was seeing, like even with working at a charter school or a Hawaiian charter school, I was seeing that we are still heavily influenced within Western culture, and the things that we are teaching is still tied to this Western philosophy and this Western mindset, and the way we're going about teaching, and just like the things that we're even required to teach, because we still have certain standards that we need to follow and that we need to hit. And I was just seeing, like, without even really being able to articulate, I was seeing how all of these things were connected, and how the education system was really like built on this whole idea that, like, you don't question, and you listen and you obey. And there was strategized to be in that way. Schools also look very similar to prisons, right? It's like a room, and we don't have a lot of windows, and just like the color of the walls, and the flooring, and the way we do our cafeteria. It's all very similar, but it's strategized to be this way. When you start questioning these things, like, why do I make my students walk in a straight line? And like, yeah, like because students can be kind of crazy and like da 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 da. But the thing is like, we continue to limit their creativity. I will give an example. At this other school, I was teaching preschool, and one of the students had ADHD, or they said he had ADHD. And he was just like, very talkative, like very, like always wanted to like play, and was so creative, and had so many questions about everything, like just like saw the world differently than his peers had seen the world. Maybe talking out, sometimes when we were doing discussions and stuff, the other teacher, he was constantly diminishing his creativity. Like the way he acted, he was always told like he had to walk in a straight line, hands need to be at your side, don't talk, listen. Kids would get so upset with him because he was so passionate about the things that he was passionate about. And the mother had put him on medication because it was too much, and the teacher agreed that he needed to be put on medication. And I'm just like, no, don't put him on medication. Like, don't put him on medication. He's 4 years old. And that's kind of how it starts. We already start telling our students, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's diminishing their creative side, their creative outlet. And as a child, that's when you have all this energy. You are this creative light, you are this creative outlet. And then as you get in school, you are told to suppress it, and you are told to diminish it, and you are told to do this, and you're told to do that. And we are just creating a whole set of people that think the same, that act the same, that are the same. And I think we forget that we as humans, as people, like, we're meant to be different, and we're not all supposed to be the same. But just like the structures of school and the structure of how things are and the ages from age 5 to age 18. And you're being taught things that sometimes aren't even relevant. Like that's a whole other discussion. Majority of the things that I learned in school were not relevant to what I'm doing now. Like why don't we teach how to write a check, how to budget and things like that? These things are important, but they're in that place for a reason. Why are we learning calculus? Like how many of us actually use it? I can say in my adult life, the only things that I've needed to use is addition, adding, subtracting, multiplication, division. But like we use our phones for a lot of those things now, right? Money obviously is important and measurement, but we teach all this other unnecessary fluff. I'm just gonna call it fluff. We teach all this unnecessary information when we really need to be teaching other things like life skills and the importance of survival and how to be critical thinkers and how to be independent from the system. A lot of the things that we have in our environment, and we still see it today, live off of these things. And we we've been taught, shaped to forget these things. We should know how to build a house. Like we should know how to build a house out of our environment. We should know how to catch our own food. We should know how to grow our own food. We should know how to make our own things. We should know how to not be a product of capitalism and having to always resort to capitalism and buying all these things. We should know that, but we're not taught these things. And there's a reason why we're not taught these things, because it keeps the people at the top wealthier and it keeps people like us at the bottom poorer. We are all just puppets to the system. And then it got me down a whole other rabbit hole of learning about the dark truths and the histories of a lot of our career origins. So I want to ask this question again. How many of you guys actually know the history of your career? Not a lot of us. These things stemmed from slave catching, which got me learning more about the dark history of banks. Banks to they used to give out loans for enslaved people. Chase, they had enslaved 13,000 people. In 2005, they had apologized for this. Another thing about banks is that they offered off of pipelining, geothermal, taking indigenous and native lands away. They profit all of these things for things to be mining or building. I didn't even know that banks like American Savings Banks, Chase, there was another one, I don't remember on the top of my head, but that they were tied to enslaving and to giving loans for enslaving people. That was something that really blew my mind. The the industry that is tied to like pharmaceuticals, like pharmaceuticals, that is like one of the highest paying, like the highest industry that gets so much money and profits off of us. Like all these things that we buy, our phone or Alexa or the ring, I think it's called like the Nova ring, or the bracelet, like an Apple Watch. We are the test subjects. They are profiting off of us. They track our sleep patterns, our diet, our health. That is being sold to insurance companies. And they're using that against us as a way to charge us extra or deny us certain things, because they're able to track your health over time. So when you try to get certain things or health insurance, they're able to deny you because they've studied your patterns and they've studied your health. They're also able to raise your prices. It's all about money. That's all it's about. Money, 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 money. I just saw a video recently that my best friend Hannah, shout out to Hannah, had sent me, and it was a video of all these satellites that Elon Musk had on the globe. It was scary. I mean, there were so many satellites that he had, and he is one of many. Amazon is also trying to do this. China, they're also doing it. It really makes you question, like, first of all, why would one man, Elon Musk, why would one person want this many satellites? Like, for what? There is satellites all around the world, and they are tracking our every move. They are tracking our behaviors, and our technology is doing it as well. Our cameras are doing it, our phones, our cars, literally everything. And it's really hard to escape that when in the modern world, we rely heavily on these things. We rely heavily on technology. And so it's like, how do you escape it? Back to the movie, like for those that have seen the movie, they clone Tyrone. Towards the end of the movie, you realize how deep it really gets. And you're like, how the fuck do you escape that? How? And that's something that I've been realizing for myself. It's like knowing all of the corruption around the world, knowing all these things, but still being a product of it, still having a cell phone, still having a laptop, and it's hard to escape the system when things are in place for us to be a product of it. But we are the product. Like nothing is free. We are the product. They are studying us. They are profiting off of us by studying us. Like another thing is, if you ever go to the bus stop, you'll see billboards. There's cameras in the billboards, and they try to capture how long, for advertising, how long you're going to be staring at a certain advertisement or picture, because they'll have like slides or different pictures that they're showcasing different advertisements. So they try to record your attention span to see how long you're engaged on a certain thing. So they'll use certain fonts or certain colors to tie you in, and they use this as a marketing process to profit off of us. Your phone is always listening to you. I'll give you an example. Last December, I was debating between going to Japan or Tahiti, which I ended up going to Tahiti, but I was really on the fence, and I was talking about this out loud because I was talking on the phone, and my phone started showing all these advertisements on Instagram, all these things, all these cheap flights to go to Japan. And I was seeing all these Instagram posts about Japan. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is we are the product. So you think Instagram is free. It's not free. There's a cost for that. And there's a cost literally for everything. If anyone's seen the movie Social Sabotage, you'll see how social media we all have our own little avatar of us, and there's an algorithm in place because we are the product and they profit off of us. It really just had me go deeper and deeper and deeper, because there are certain things I want to be able to escape, and I want to escape not being tied to the system. And how do you untie yourself from the system when you need a job and you need money and you need certain things? I have a friend, shout out if you're watching. He lives in Laupohoihoi. It's an isolated area. It's very country over there. And he told me that the Wi-Fi he had was Starlink. And I was like, why would you get Starlink? Starlink, that's Elon Musk. Why the fuck would you support that? And he's like, that's the only Wi-Fi services you can get out here. That's just like a whole other thing. When you target these certain areas, you really have no choice but to conform. I mean, you have a choice, but unless you're going to keep up with the modern world, then you don't. And things are in place this way strategically for a reason. And it really just, it makes you feel powerless. It makes you feel small, because there's people at the top and they don't have our best intentions. And my goal really is just to bring more awareness to these things, because I think we need to be having these conversations, and we need to start questioning them, and we need to start boycotting them. So my biggest thing is like shop local, support local, because it does make a difference. Pay attention to every little thing. Where do you get your gas from? Where are you getting your groceries from? Where are you getting your clothes from? The top organizations are what? Microsoft, Amazon, Google. These are the top corporations, and they're sitting on billions and billions of dollars. They have funds to support the entire globe, to help the entire globe for the better, but they don't. They sit on their money and they profit off of us. So why do we continue to support these companies? Why do we continue to upgrade our phone to the iPhone 16 when these companies are having child labor in Congo, and they are having really harsh conditions, or fast fashion, which we know is tied to child labor and these really harsh conditions for women and for children? Why do we continue to support them? Is it because we don't see it? So it's like it's not there, I don't see it, but we know. And so that's like another strange thing, just like humans in general, like the human collective, human species, is we are so easily manipulated, and we're like, I want to use the word brainwashed, but yeah, we're easily brainwashed. And money is the root of all evil. And I remember this guy that I dated, he said that, and I was like, I'm like, okay, but money is the root of all evil. And the reason I say that is because it can really turn us against each other. And if you look at all these different things and all these different structures, it's tied to money. Everything is tied to money. And these people at the very top, they have so much of it. Elon Musk, I looked up his net worth and Google's net worth. I forgot on the top of my head, but it's like billions and billions of dollars. Like, somebody who has that much money and is still continuing to profit off of us, they do not have good intentions of this world. And we continue to fund these people. Imagine if that money was in the right hands, what that could do for the collective and how we could help like houselessness and how we could help all these really big issues that we see in the world. But instead, they profit off of us and we continue to support them. And I don't have all the answers because clearly I still use my phone. It's an older version, iPhone 11, but it's just being more mindful of these things and really paying attention to where you're shopping and how you're spending your money. And can you make that product or do you need to buy it? Because another thing we feel like we need consumption. Really do your homework and do your due diligence. Supporting local is the way, and it really does make a difference. I've literally shifted from getting my gas at Safeway to getting my gas, which is maybe 10, 15 cents more, but to going to a local gas station. It's just like these small little changes. If it's on a whole scheme, if it's on a whole level of multiple people doing this, imagine the kind of change that we can create if we really did put our funds and our money and our support in local businesses. We got to dismantle the system. That's really what we do. And we got to fight these barriers. We got to fight these structures, and we got to share the truth and speak on the truth. We are the products, and they're using us for their financial gains, and they have enough money. They have enough. So like, let's support other local businesses. But closing up on that note, speaking of local businesses, I am creating a brand, and I'm in the midst of creating shirts and some other merchandise, and I'm really stoked and excited to show you guys once it's all finished. I've worked really hard on it. I've literally spent like 1,000 bajillion hours into it. I'm like, okay, calm down. When I have a vision for something, I get so hyper fixated on it. And I think that's also just telling me that I'm going down the right path and that I'm doing something that I'm really passionate in. But I will keep it at that. So thank you for tuning in. And the next episode, so I'm wearing my moon earrings for the new moon, the Muku moon. That's gonna be today. Not today, but when I release it, it'll be that day on Friday. So keep tuned for the next episode, which will be on the full moon. It will be an interview episode. There's some different people that I'm working with right now, and I'm really excited to talk about these topics collectively and just create awareness and create change. So if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, share it. It really means the world to me, and comment, like, subscribe. So thanks, guys.